The beginning of summer, and Boku returns home after living at the dormitory of his dream school. Awaiting his return are his two kind-hearted older sisters. Ayami is the eldest and most relaxed sibling and can attract any guy with her special scent. She greets Boku and wonders if he's tired from his trip. Next, Boku is greeted by the middle child of their family, Megumi, who seems somewhat surprised he has returned home. She's the complete opposite of Ayami because of her feisty attitude. Boku finds both of his sisters attractive, especially for someone without experience. While he is with Megumi, she catches him admiring her. She reacts excitedly and makes fun of him for not having any experience. Because of this, she decides to flaunt her stuff to Boku and asks how she looks. While happily showing off, Ayami interrupts them by calling Boku to go to her. Boku then wonders if he'll survive her sisters as they attempt to get closer to him. In the living room, Ayami asks Boku if Megumi was messing with him earlier. After realizing Megumi was showing off to Boku, Ayami decides to do the same. She then realizes that Boku's sword hero is rising because of her, so she decides to let him hold her giant personalities. Afterward, she decides to help Boku train his sword hero as long as he doesn't tell Megumi. She is amazed by its performance and asks if he ever trained by himself while looking at her Instagram. Ayami and Boku kiss while she adjusts his sword just before Boku releases all his energy. After that, Ayami promises to do something more for him as long as he doesn't tell Megumi about what happened. Later on in the day, Boku meets Megumi in her room. She asks what he did with Ayami, but he doesn't tell her anything. She then asks if Boku has ever seen anything special. Of course, he lies. Megumi tells him if he shows her his self-service skills, she will show him something special in return. Since he respects his elders, Boku does what Big Sis wants, and she fulfills her promise. She shows him her twin personalities and her self-service skills too. Boku can't help but release his energy. Because Boku still has some fight left, Megumi decides to show him her special karaoke techniques as long as he doesn't tell Ayami. While showing him her techniques, Megumi realizes he lied about what he did with Ayami. It seems she's a little greedy and wants Boku to herself. Boku then releases his energy while Megumi is performing her special karaoke techniques. As the sun sets, Megumi gives Boku a massage with her twin personalities, after which Boku releases more energy. She then decides to give him his first wrestling experience. However, they are interrupted by Ayami calling Boku to go downstairs. Megumi begs him to stay and then proceeds to wrestle with him. While this is happening, Ayami is giving herself a massage downstairs. While wrestling, Megumi asks Boku if he's happy she was the first person to wrestle her. She says no other person would have been able to wrestle with him and that she's loving their match. She applauds him for doing so well, even if it's his first time in a pro home wrestling match. She starts panicking about him releasing his energy into her power bank, but Boku can't hold back and does it anyway. Afterward, Boku thanked her before leaving to go to Ayami, who had called him earlier. On the way down, Boku thinks about how happy he is to have his first wrestling experience, even though it was with Big Sister. When he arrives downstairs, he finds Ayami on the floor, exhausted. She tells him she did her warm-up exercises herself while he and Megumi were having their wrestling match because she was getting impatient waiting for him. She admits she wanted to be the first person to give him his first wrestling experience but let Megumi do it because they got along so well when he arrived. She admits that she and Megumi had been fighting for him because it excited them. Ayami then asks what Boku wants to do while Megumi rests, and he says he wants to wrestle. Ayami agrees and gets into position. They begin to wrestle, and Ayami is happy they are finally wrestling. She apologizes that she and Megumi always wanted to wrestle. Boku admits he didn't expect them to be fond of wrestling. After Ayami is in the lead for a while, Boku takes over the match because he wants to show her he can wrestle well. Ayami tells him he's doing well, and Boku says he wants to claim her, and she agrees. She then asks Boku to release his energy into her power bank, which he does after a good amount of wrestling. After the match, Ayane thinks about how proud she is of Boku because of the kind of person he grew up to be. The next day, Boku reminisces about his experience when he first returned home. He thinks about how his sisters helped him experience wrestling for the first time, and they were able to build a special relationship this way. He realizes that they'll probably want to wrestle with him again. During the night, Boku thinks about how he lives in the same house with two supportive sisters who make him want to constantly train himself. Ayame suddenly enters his room to ask which of his two sisters is currently on his mind. She then decides to help him with his massage as long as he thinks about her because she wants him to be able to release all of his energy. She then starts using her special karaoke techniques and thinks about how he could make her full many times if he releases too much energy. Her techniques are so good that Boku finds himself on the verge of releasing his energy in no time. Ayame realizes this and tells him to just release his energy so he can feel better. Boku then releases his energy, and Ayame helps him fix the mess he made. Before leaving, Ayame tells him she'll continue to visit him every night. In the morning, when he goes for a number one, Boku finds Megumi sleeping on the toilet. Megumi suddenly wakes up and thinks Boku is trying to start a wrestling match with her while she's asleep, but this is because she had a few drinks the night before. He says she's wrong, but she doesn't believe him because his sword hero is already risen. Megumi ignores it and goes straight to showing him her secret karaoke techniques because she didn't do anything fun when she was at the club the night before. Almost immediately after, Boku released his energy, and Megumi happily absorbed it. Afterward, Megumi insists they should have a wrestling match, and they teleport into the living room to begin. While wrestling, Megumi says Boku is being too aggressive. In contrast, Boku says she is being too noisy and that Ayame might complain about the noise. Megumi gets upset because what they're doing has nothing to do with Ayame, and he should just focus on their match. She then realizes that her drinking from the night before affected her thinking and is the reason why she had this spontaneous wrestling match with Boku. When Boku releases his energy into her power bank, he immediately starts wrestling her again despite both of them being tired. Because Megumi loves it so much, she gladly accepts more energy being released into her power bank. Megumi falls asleep on the couch when the match finishes, either because she drank too much or because her power bank got overloaded. Boku then decides to take a bath, wondering if Megumi is still asleep. Ayame suddenly enters the bathroom wearing a bathing suit and holding a bottle with a strange unknown liquid. She then goes straight to helping Boku adjust his sword, saying she knew about his wrestling match with Megumi because of the noise they were making. She says she got jealous because he gave her too much energy. She tells Boku that she wants to be the only one he has wrestling matches with, then goes straight to showing him his secret karaoke techniques, which makes him immediately release his energy. They then begin to wrestle turbulently despite the slipperiness of the bathroom because of all the water. Boku also tells her he liked what she was wearing when she entered. Ayame admits wearing it because Megumi wears the same kind of clothing. It seems she wore it because she thought it might help him release his energy faster, even though it was embarrassing. Soon after, Boku released his energy into her power bank. Even though they were both tired, Ayame insisted on having another match, so they went straight into it. Ayane felt Boku was becoming more aggressive with his wrestling and felt weird about how often they wrestled despite her being his older sister. Still, she couldn't help it because she loved their matches so much. Boku then released more energy into her power bank right before passing out. He wakes up hours later, not knowing why he passed out. It was probably the bottle of liquid Ayame had brought with her when she had visited him in the bathroom for their wrestling matches. When he regains consciousness, he finds Ayame and Megumi using their secret karaoke techniques on his sword hero. They are arguing about who got to wrestle Boku more often right when he woke up. Ayame suddenly takes over, making Megumi mad, so she fights back to regain control of the situation. This makes Boku unable to hold back, and he releases his energy. After that, Boku has a wrestling match with Megumi because he still has energy left. Megumi is surprised because Boku is being too rough and using moves she didn't expect, which might have been risky. Before finishing his match with Megumi, he starts to wrestle Ayame, who is surprised because of the moves Boku was using that she didn't expect. During this 2-on-1 wrestling match, he switches between each one of them, showing off all his different wrestling moves so that they would feel how special they are to him. He wants to create special things with them, so he does his best to release as much energy into their power banks as possible to keep them fully charged. Not long after, he goes all out in releasing his energy into both of their power banks, and the match finally ends. The two supportive older sisters tell Boku to go to them when he wants to wrestle instead of practicing his wrestling moves alone.